Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Esports Show. I am Andrew Laird, joined as always by Ethan Sexton. Today to talk about Saturday's 5-game LPL LCK slate. Quick review of Friday. So the two big favorites went to 3 games, and the two close series went sweeps. Just how we thought it would go, but at least we don't have to talk about Fred at Brion beating Genji and Damwon in the same season.
No, it was a little bit surprising, right, that both JDG and Genji dropped the game. That game two for I didn't watch the Genji series at all because I don't do the second screen, and I'd rather watch China if both options are there. So the second game for JDG and I'm drawing a blank, man.
Genji?
No.
Thunder Talk.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, man. Drawing a
blank. Thunder Talk smoked him.
Yeah, the second game was crazy, man. Thunder Talk got 29 kills. JDG had 21. It was a messy affair, and really wouldn't have expected that out of JDG because they're usually pretty precise against these lower tier teams. But it wasn't the case today. And then I think I think at Gen G series when I was typing up the notes, it was JDG. So they had that sloppy game 3, right? Or game 2, excuse me, where there was 50 kills between the two of them in one game. And then game 3, JDG won and TT got 1 kill. So
one kill. Yep.
That was more in line with what we expected. But yeah, they got pushed to 3 games, and that kind of blew up the scores there. And then Gen G also going to 3 games, but they didn't. They still scored pretty low, and then not getting the games not played bonus really didn't help them at all, right? So,
were wrong. If you showed me that there was a 12-1, I would immediately say it was Gen G.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I mean, Gen G and JDG usually play at slower paces, but that game 2 was just kind of crazy in the JDG series, and then just completely got KT Afrika wrong. I really thought KT would were the better team on paper, but I guess anything could go there. I mean, 2 lower level teams, mid-range teams, whatever you want to call them, and then I said EDG would win.
And then I got EDG completely wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I was with you. I thought EDG would win just because they've been the more consistent team, but we definitely did try to talk about the upside of IG, and I actually landed on IG in my lineup because I was only playing GPP anyway. They were sub 10% owned in the GPP I played, which was awesome, but I paired them with KT, so didn't really work out in my favor. So all good. I mean, I think today's slate was pretty, like we talked about, more oriented for GPPs. It was a lot of tricky matchups a little bit, and then the teams that we perceived to be safe dropped games, and then I don't know. It wasn't such a straightforward slate, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Shock Blast, which is the main one. It had a 7-way tie for first. Kanavi captain, JDG Afrika, which it made sense, I guess. Simple as that. Made sense.
I think so. Yeah, we had the perceived safety of JDG, and then they ended up really hitting their ceilings, if you will. And then Afrika KT, you could have gone either way. I don't think it was stupid to play either side of that matchup. So, yeah, makes sense to me, man.
Yeah, simple as that.
Yeah.
Let's go into Saturday's 5-game slate. We have one of the biggest favorites we've had all season, top heavily favored against E-Star.
Yep.
I'll get into that in a second. Damwon favored against T1, Hanwha over DRX, LGD over Rogue Warriors, and FPX slight favorites against RNG.
Yep.
I'm assuming everyone will want to play top esports. I feel like it's been 2 days in a row. I'm like, we have some ideal situations. TES against E-Star feels like an ideal situation.
For sure.
But man, they are really expensive.
Yep. As they should be, right? So
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to jam them in because there are some underdogs that are tempting on this slate, right? But nobody that's we got to get them in our lineups, and then
right.
Even underdogs like RNG are not priced down that low because It's basically a coin flip matchup against FPX. So it's kind of tough to do it with an underdog that you feel better about. Yeah, it makes it difficult. I mean, it is a dream setup for top esports. I mean, we talk about how we really like teams playing against E-Star. We like teams playing against Rogue Warriors. So it sets up really well for top. They've been playing much better of late than they were at the beginning of the season. They're still only 4-3, but it feels like they're starting to kind of come around and get back into the form we remember from last year. So yeah, I mean that's like the slam dunk matchup, right? I mean, all these other ones are pretty tricky. So yeah, I mean top is the perceived safest team, and I think they do have good upside against an E-Star team that coughs up a lot of deaths, right? So certainly it's a good spot for top, but you got to pay for it as well.
Yeah, I think it's even difficult to get top and RNG.
Right.
RNG priced as underdogs, but like they're the highest underdogs, so it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
Looking at the other ones, excuse me, not that I really don't want to play any of them, but like if there's a time to play Rogue Warriors, it might be now. But like they've been so bad that I'm just going to look at everyone else and be like, no, I'd rather play them. Like I think I actually would rather play E-Star, and E-Star should get absolutely blasted. So that makes me like, okay, I'll just go to DRX and T1. Maybe they can get it out. DRX is the one that like kind of like I don't feel good about any of them.
No.
But that one, I feel better about DRX, maybe just because I've been burned so many times by the T1 lineup situation that I don't want to go down that road. But like Rogue Warriors not being the biggest underdog worries me because I'm like, oh, maybe I should play Rogue Warriors.
Well, I think, like you said, I was going to say the same thing when we talked about Rogue Warriors LGD. I mean, this is the time if you're going to play Rogue Warriors. I mean, it's in a matchup like this, right? But
yeah,
I don't want to do it. I think you can do it, like just because LGD are a pretty bad team as well. And I think a Rogue Warriors team with like Betty in instead of Michi is an upgrade. Betty's not like a great AD carry, but I think he's better than Michi. I'm a little surprised he just didn't outright start the season for Rogue Warriors this year. The biggest problem is like Haro is such a coin flip guy. Like I think I've said this before. Like 2 years ago, when he was starting for Rogue Warriors, that meant you just automatically stacked the other team. And we came into last season when the boom really happened for League of Legends, DFS, and it was the same thing, but then he started having actually pretty good performances. I think he sat out for a little while during last year, and then he came back, and he was actually pretty good for the most part, but now he's kind of back to being crap. So the old rule of thumb used to be if Haro is starting, stack the other team, and it's just really difficult because LGD are crap as well.
You're right.
So it's like, yeah, you can play LGD in this matchup. It's like this is the time to play them as well, right? And I still like Kramer, even though he hasn't really been great this year. It's just like a lot of times in matchups like these, it's like, well, I don't like either side, so why don't I just go with the cheaper side? But you really don't get a ton of salary savings by using Rogue Warriors. I mean, they're pretty closely priced, so I don't know. It's a tough one. Like, my lean is LGD, but do I feel that passionately about it? I really don't. And then you kind of got to factor in with LGD as well. Like, they do have backup options in some positions. Like, they've got a backup jungler. They've got a backup support. They have a backup top laner, although he hasn't played except as AD carry when Kramer was out.
Right.
So LGD, if they lose game one, do they start swapping people in? That could definitely happen, especially the jungle role. They've done that a lot already this year. So, I mean, my lean is LGD, but I don't really feel strongly about it, and I really think you could play either side. Could end up being a pretty sloppy series.
I want to believe that LGD is better than their record. Like, we went through this before the break when they were up against Thunder Talk. Because we're like, they've lost to everyone much better than them.
Right.
Like they lost to V5, EDG, Top, BLG, and Suning.
Yep.
Swept by all except V5, who dropped one game.
Right.
But then they swept Thunder Talk, and we were like, maybe they're the best awful team.
The good bad team, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we can say Rogue Warriors is a good bad team. Like
I don't think
they're
so.
a bad team.
Yeah, from what we've seen, they're just awful, right? And it's kind of tough because like Betty, I think, is solid, and Ziv was pretty good when he was playing in the LMS, but they haven't transitioned over at all, and it's just they're a bad team, man. It's weird when you look at the LPL standings because you have Suning in 12th and LGD in 13th, and they both were at Worlds last year.
Right.
Obviously, LGD's like a completely new roster, except for a couple pieces, Kramer notably. So yeah, I mean, it's weird that they're down there. But I wonder if that, like, the fact that LGD, the team, made Worlds last year kind of plays into the narrative of us thinking that they're better than some of these other crap teams, you know? Maybe for me it does. So we spent a lot of time on a matchup between two really bad teams, man.
But, like, I mean, all of the matchups are pretty close.
Yep.
I mean, they're not coin flips, but I think all of them except top, if the underdog won, like, we're not, like, blown away.
Right.
Like T1, I think the beginning of the season, if you were like T1 should be able to beat Damwon on any given day, either of them should win that.
Yep.
Or could win it.
Yep.
Like if DRX beats Hanwha, like we've seen Hanwha kind of struggle sometimes, and DRX we know is upside. I mean, all of them, you can say it. And then FPX RNG is like two really good teams.
Right.
So like you're not surprised if either of those win. So I think this, like from a deaths perspective, LGD Rogue Warriors could be really high scoring because all they do is die all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I don't know. I just if you're trying to build without top, and top's kind of the unfortunate huge favor because they crush almost always when they win. But if you kind of throw them out, like you can get away with some of the other two favorites. Like you can make reasonable lineups.
Yep.
Like there's nothing like trying to build with top to make the other teams look cheap, even the favorites.
Right.
So like, do you think you can get away with winning with a non-top lineup?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can. It's just that it's so much harder to like determine who the teams are that are going to be the ones to outscore them, right? Because in a lot of these matchups, I mean, especially, yeah, in every other matchup, to your point, it's like very difficult to clearly state who we think is going to win, in my opinion. So they're all really close. I think that's what makes it such a challenge is you get the perceived safety by using top esports. And then all the other favorites are like they could win, but they could also lose. They could score well. They could score like crap. So it's kind of tough from that perspective. I mean, personally, I'm sort of ignoring the two LCK games, honestly. But I have to at least admit that all four teams have some upside. So it wouldn't be like a shock if one of them ends up the highest scoring team on the slate. But it's just a lot of the other factors baked in. Like T1, we have no clue who's going to play. They're coming off a win, but they've changed their lineup in wins before. So who knows who's going to play there.
And they're the late game.
Yeah, and they're the late game, so we're not going to know. I mean, Damwon plays the same lineup all the time, so there's not really lineup questions there. But, T1 have enough potential on that team that they could upset Damwon, so Damwon's not the safest bet. They're pretty safe, I think. But they're not like a clear bet to come out and sweep and just smash, right?
Yep.
And same with HLE DRX. It's HLE won 2-1 last time they played, but HLE have kind of been up and down. They're fourth in the league, which is pretty good. DRX are just ahead of them in third. It's like it's just not a safe matchup for either side of the coin there. So if you're going to pay up for HLE, it just makes it kind of tough. I mean, the one thing about DRX, though, compared to some of these other matchups, you get a ton of salary savings by using DRX. And they're 7-3. They've been playing well. They're one spot ahead of Hanwha Life in the standings. It's just, I think on paper, most people would look at the two lineups and say that Hanwha Life have the better lineup, and they did win last time they played. But you do get a good amount of salary savings using DRX compared to some of these other underdogs. I mean, same for T1. You get quite a bit of salary savings, but it's really like you got to just basically set and forget if you're playing T1 because we're not going to know who's going to start, and it's always tough when they're on the slate, man. Makes it hard. And then I'm not really talking about RNG FPX. You do get salary savings with RNG as well, and they're one spot ahead of FPX in the standings, right? Yeah. So some of these underdogs are actually above the teams that they're playing in the standings, but I don't know. It's just these matchups, man. There's not a lot of clarity outside of top esports, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think you laid it out pretty well. Mostly that because the series are supposed to be so close, from a tournament perspective, it almost seems silly to play a favorite, because any of them can go. You obviously get decent salary savings just using one underdog. So right. I think people will try to act. It doesn't work quite as well with RNG, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's I'm going to make 5 lineups with a TES long stack, and then the short stack I'm going to do one LGD, one HLE, one one Rogue Warriors, one DRX, one T1. Good luck to those who make the one. All right, I guess you wouldn't even do E-Star because that's a game stack. So but I think that, for those who make a handful of lineups, I just think top and one of the underdogs, RNG is not as easy, is the way to go. But I do wonder if just fading top is really how to differentiate yourself. You may not. It's one of those things that you may be giving up the highest score, but you're doing it in order for uniqueness. And if something wild happens, then that's how it pays off. Yeah,
I think it's a good GPP slate because of that, right? I mean, and because we get 5 games, it makes it a lot. You can make a lot more lineup combinations. Yeah, I mean, I think if you play the underdogs, it's well, at least I didn't have to pay up, and you're not disappointed by an underdog losing as you would be if you played a favorite and they lost. Right. And you got to try to figure out what cheap options to put in with the favorites. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these underdogs are good enough that they can win these series for sure. It's a tricky slate, man.
I think the key thing though is that if you do one of the underdogs, whoever it is, and I'm not going to tell you Rogue Warriors are winning or DRX, but if you go into this slate, you're I like this one underdog. It just seems everyone will just be oh, let me just play top because I can do it. So I don't even think you need to play E-Star if you're looking for leverage. I think you just cannot play top and try your best.
Yeah, I think there's enough other options that ownership probably, except for top esports, is going to be pretty spread out, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. You don't really have to go full on crazy and stack E-Star just to get the leverage. I think, a lot of these other teams are probably going to be pretty comparably owned, except for top esports. So yeah, spreads things out kind of nice tomorrow.
So this FPX RNG matchup, and touch on that before we finish up. Do you think whoever wins that is let's call it the second highest scoring team because we kind of expect top to be the highest scoring team, or do you think that one is just kind of more controlled and not as bloody?
I mean, it is 2 teams that like to fight a little bit, so I think it could be the winner of that, could end up being the second highest scoring team on the slate. But then you look at all these series and you could kind of see a reason to think that any of these teams could be the second highest scorer on the slate. I sort of want to lean with the winner of LGD Rogue Warriors just because I feel that's going to be the most chaotic.
Truly sloppy.
Just because it's 2 bad teams. I mean, I would always lean, even though it hasn't always been the case this year and into last year. I would still always lean towards the LPL teams outscoring the LCK teams. So I feel a little bit better about the winner of LGD Rogue Warriors or the winner of FPX RNG being the second highest scorer on the slate. Yeah. But all these teams have a little bit of upside at least, so it's anything could happen tomorrow, and I really wouldn't be shocked, except for E-Star winning and scoring the most points.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a weird dichotomy there with the two really good teams versus 2 really bad teams, and whether it's excellent League of Legends against each other that gives a ton of points, or just the sloppiest of sloppy, and that's where all of the points come from too.
You never know, right? Because today we had that game 2 where between JDG and Thunder Talk, and there was 50 kills between the two teams in one game. I mean, sometimes we don't even see 50 kills in a series, right? So, I mean, you never know. It's really just that's why it's so hard to predict this stuff, right? It's just you never know what's going to happen on any given slate. So, it makes it tough. And you always, I mean, compared to other sports where you can get by with losers because they can do enough in the DFS scoring, even in a loss, like it's usually not the same for league. So it just makes it a challenge for all of us, right? But it's why we like it too, though, right? It's putting the puzzle together. So yeah, it's a tricky one tomorrow, but it's a good one for viewing for sure. There's a lot of good matchups, and it's a good one for building lineups because there's a lot of ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, we'll at least predict that top will be extremely popular. Like
yes, that feels like a given for sure. So
right. Cool. All right. If you guys have enjoyed the video, if you could please hit the like button below. Feel free to subscribe to all of the RotoWire videos covering all the sports that we dive into. Feel free to try us out for free as well. 10-day subscription to the site, rotowire.com/pod, P-O-D, gets you access to everything that we cover, as well as our subscriber Discord chat. If you are a member and have not gone to the chat, just go to rotowire.com/chat to join there. Get some good conversation on League of Legends, hockey, basketball, everything that is going on right now. A whole bunch of soccer as well, so try that out. Ethan, thank you for that. Good luck on Saturday.
All right, same to you, man.